And we are back. Welcome back to the channel. And finally, welcome back to the EFL Cup, Carabao Cup, League Cup prediction series. It feels like an absolute age since we did one of these, but it is finally time for the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. A quick reminder that tomorrow morning we will be doing the final round, match day 6 of the Europa Conference League, because for some reason they're doing the final round of the Conference League now, even though there are still 2 rounds left of the Europa League and the Champions League. But tomorrow morning's video will be the full half-hour video going over all of the remaining Europa Conference League fixtures. But as for today, it is time to do our 4 Carabao Cup quarterfinals. So before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the predictions we've got coming up for you over the Christmas period, including Premier League, the start of the FA Cup for the Premier League teams, and of course the return of Champions League and Europa League in the new year. But let's skip ahead now to the prediction screen, where you will see that after round 4, we are in this position in the Carabao Cup. We are on 57 out of 84 correct results with only 6 correct scores. But statistically, this is my best competition in terms of predictions so far. Well over 50% with 57 out of 84. Let's see how many of the 4 predictions we are going to get right today. We've got 3 matches taking place tomorrow with a 1 match taking place on Thursday. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it with the earliest kickoff on Wednesday night, which is Arsenal taking on Crystal Palace. Arsenal got into the quarterfinals by beating Preston 3-0 away from home, thanks to a man-of-the-match performance from 17-year-old Wanyeri. Meanwhile, Crystal Palace got themselves here by winning 2-1 away from home at Aston Villa. So a really impressive result for Palace to get them into this position. And coming into this match, they come into it off the back of another impressive away result, winning the M23 derby away at Brighton at the weekend. Meanwhile, Arsenal come into this match off the back of 2 Premier League draws in a row against Fulham and against Everton at home, incredibly disappointingly at the weekend, meaning that in their last 4 Premier League games, they have only scored goals from set pieces. Okay, they did have their 3-0 win against Monaco in between, but they're not exactly playing great stuff at the moment, are Arsenal. And Crystal Palace come into this game 5 games unbeaten, and as we just spoke about, with some really impressive results on the way. Not only that, Arsenal have a tendency to rotate their stars out of their team when it comes to this competition. Mikel Arteta has been heavily criticised for not delivering trophies for Arsenal in his time, and it's mainly because he does make those changes. He does prioritise Premier League, Champions League, etc. over the likes of the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. And if he makes changes in this game, I can see Arsenal really struggling once again. Crystal Palace played their full first team in that win against Aston Villa a couple of months ago, and I would expect them to play their full first team again. So for them, the only real first team absentee is still going to be Adam Wharton, but the relationships building around that Crystal Palace team, especially that back line, is starting to look really good. And I think if Arsenal do rest players, which I expect them to do so, I think Crystal Palace can capitalise. I'm starting off today's predictions with a 1-1 draw. However, I think even after all of that, I can still see Arsenal winning it on penalties, because it would be just the most Arsenal thing to do, to play absolutely terrible, still manage to scrape a draw, and then win the penalty shootout. So I'm still going for Arsenal, but I think Crystal Palace, probably of all the teams this week, have the best chance of producing an upset. On to the second match then, and it is Newcastle taking on Brentford at St James's Park. Newcastle beat Chelsea 2-0 at home in the 4th round. Meanwhile, Brentford beat Sheffield Wednesday on penalties following a 1-1 draw. It is worth noting that in that match against Chelsea, Newcastle did actually make changes to their first team as well, leaving out the likes of Bruno Guimaraes. So there is no guarantee that Newcastle will play their full first team going into this, whereas Brentford actually played near enough their full first team against Sheffield Wednesday and still only managed the 1-1 draw. But I would expect Thomas Frank to play his strongest side. I mean, you look at the sides that are left in this competition. If you're a Brentford, a Southampton, a Crystal Palace, with the likes of Chelsea, Man City, and a few others already knocked out, it's a real opportunity to progress in this competition. So I would expect the sort of lesser sides, with the greatest respect to all of them, to play their strongest sides and try and capitalise on this opportunity. So we'll see. I would expect a change in goal for Newcastle. I think Dubravka will now step aside for Vlachodimos, with Nick Pope obviously injured. But I do think with Newcastle being the home side in this one, with Brentford's absolutely horrendous away record that we've already spoken about so far enough on this channel, they only have 1 point in the Premier League so far this season, and their only win away from home in all competitions was in the second round away to Colchester. So Brentford's away record is absolutely horrid. Newcastle at home are very, very good, but it is finally worth noting that when these two sides met just a couple of weeks ago in the Premier League, Brentford did win 4-2. So it's still the same players. Can they produce the result away from home? I expect this to be an entertaining one. I expect there to be goals. I'm going for a 3-2 victory to Newcastle. That then takes us to Southampton taking on Liverpool, where unbelievably this stat comes out now, where Southampton have 3 times as many wins in this competition than they do in the Premier League so far this season, and we're in mid-December. They have 3 wins in this competition, only 1 win in the Premier League so far this season. That has now meant that finally Russell Martin has lost his job, and it'll be Simon Rusk that will be taking temporary charge of Southampton for this match. It looks like at the moment they're pushing really hard to get Danny Roll out of Sheffield Wednesday. He was Ralph Hasenhüttl's assistant manager at Southampton the last time they were in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of setup Southampton apply under Simon Rusk. So there's really not much we can go on here. Whenever a temporary manager takes charge, normally they will just play the same team that played the previous time. But you look at what Van Nistelrooy did at Leicester, or the temporary manager did at Leicester before Van Nistelrooy came in, changed the entire setup, changed the entire 11. So I can honestly sit here right now and say I have no idea how Southampton are going to line up. Liverpool is a little bit easier to talk about. The expectation would be here that Liverpool do make changes. They've made changes in both of their Carabao Cup ties so far, beating Premier League opposition on both occasions. They beat West Ham and they beat Brighton to get here, but again, making changes along the way. The big question for Liverpool going into this is, what is their back line going to look like? We expect Kelleher to come back in goal for Alisson, but then they have some serious injury problems at the back. Are they going to risk playing Trent in this match with Conor Bradley still injured, with no availability at left back? Robertson suspended after his red card against Fulham, and Tsimikas is injured. So are they going to play Gomez at left back, which then would mean they'd have to play Van Dijk alongside Quansah and then Trent at right back? Remains to be seen. It's, again, a real opportunity for Arne Slot to deliver a trophy for Liverpool in his first season. So I would expect him to play a relatively strong side. But so far, they have made changes in this competition. What we can expect is to see Diogo Jota make his first start since he's come back from injury at the weekend. And we could see a start for Federico Chiesa in the English football, I think, for the first time. I don't think he's actually started a game in English football so far. He's only started in the Champions League. So be interested to see how he gets on. Ultimately, with the way Southampton have been playing, unless Rusk can come in and completely change their mindset, get rid of this whole risky passing out from the back, which, if we're being honest, cost Southampton against Liverpool when they met a couple of weeks ago, where they gave away 2 goals by literally giving the ball away, and then the handball from Sugawara meant that Liverpool won 3-2. If they can get rid of that for this game, Southampton may have more of a chance. But ultimately, the way Liverpool play, even though they've not been great over the last couple of weeks, you've still got to expect Liverpool to beat the bottom side in the Premier League. Realistically, it's still top against bottom, even though it's in a different competition. I'm going for a 2-0 win to Liverpool. And then finally, it's Tottenham against Manchester United. And rather than do my usual chat before my prediction, I'm just going to give you my prediction right now. I'm going to go 2-1 to Spurs. And I'm going to give you that sort of perspective as a Manchester United fan more than a general prediction side of things. The way I look at it, Ange Postecoglou has made a statement at the start of the season that he always delivers a trophy in his second season. So their mindset going into this match is full first team. They're going to go for it. They're going to want to beat Manchester United. The clearest signal of that is they took Heung-min Son off at the weekend when they went 5-0 up at half-time. So we know that Heung-min Son's going to be starting this game for Tottenham. Manchester United, on the other hand, have had 2 seasons in a row where they have delivered trophies, but right now Ruben Amorim's mission is to get Manchester United back into the Champions League. The best way of doing that is prioritising the Premier League and prioritising the Europa League. And that's what I think he's going to do. It'd be very easy for me to sit here and say, if he plays the same team that played against Manchester City at the weekend, we could definitely get a result against Spurs. And I do genuinely believe that. If I see the same starting 11 that started against Manchester City, this prediction changes to a Manchester United win. Even though Spurs did win 5-0 at the weekend against Southampton, I do think that Manchester United can get a result with that team. But with Amorim's priorities being Premier League and Champions League, I think he'll be making a fair few changes to that lineup. I think at least one of Rashford and Garnacho will be back in the starting lineup. I think Bayande will be in goal instead of Onana. I think you'll see changes to the back line. I can definitely see the likes of Lindelof coming in. I think Maguire will probably still start. I think he might make some changes at fullback and see Malacia coming in. But I think crucially, I think Ugarte won't play. And I think that is the big one in terms of why Spurs will end up winning this match. I think the midfield will definitely have Casemiro in it. And I think with his lack of legs in there compared to how much effort Ugarte was putting in against De Bruyne and Phil Foden, I think with Casemiro in there instead, the likes of Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson and Maddison and Sarr and all them lot that sort of occupy those areas of the pitch, I think that's where Tottenham will win this game. If Ugarte starts, I think there's a lot more favour in terms of Manchester United. But it would really surprise me to see Ugarte starting this match, given the fact that the game against City was the first time that he really got through an entire match for Manchester United so far. So that's why I'm going for Spurs. I think they're going to want this more. It is still worth noting that Udogie is now injured for Spurs as well. So their backline is absolutely diminished at the moment. So still opportunities for United to capitalise. But let's not forget that also at the start of the season, Spurs did win 3-0 at Old Trafford. So they've also got that on their side going into this one as well. So unfortunately, even as a United fan, I've still got to go for Spurs here. But that's the way I see it. I'm going Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool and Tottenham. But I can definitely see probably even all four of these games potentially having some drama in it at some point. But as always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching as always. I'll be back tomorrow morning where we'll be covering the final round of the Europa Conference League. I'll see you there.